Now let's look at momentum and force. So we're going to bring back force, which we were talking about in Chapter 5. So to stop an object with a large momentum, you're going to need either a large force, which means stopping the object quickly, or a small force applied for a long time. Okay, so think back to the example that I showed earlier of the truck running into a wall. Okay, so a truck has a large momentum if it is going a certain velocity, a certain speed, right? It has a large mass, and then it has the potential to have a large velocity, so it's going to have a large momentum. So to stop that truck, we're either going to need a large force, such as the wall, the truck running into a wall, because that will stop the truck. It's a large force acting upon that truck. But if we run into a wall, right, we're going to be stopping that object quickly. That truck's going to stop very fast. And there's going to be injuries. The other option to stop that truck with that large momentum would be applying a small force over a long period of time. So that would be, instead of running into the wall, if you applied the brakes. Because if you press on the brakes, you're just applying a small force, but you're applying it over a longer period of time. It's going to take longer for the truck to stop using the brakes than if you ran into a wall. Okay, so changing an object's momentum is going to depend upon the force applied, but also the time interval in which that force was applied. So are you stopping it quickly or are you stopping it slowly? So here we're going to have our first equation for impulse. So what impulse is the change in momentum. Okay, so impulse is the change in momentum. So when you are stopping an object, you are changing its momentum. Its momentum is going from, say, 4,500 kilograms times meters per second down to 0, right? The impulse is the change in momentum, and we just said that change in momentum, or to stop an object, is dependent upon force and time. How much force are you applying, and how long is it taking to stop that object? So this is our first equation that we're going to have for impulse, where we're taking the force applied times the time interval, the time it took to stop. Looking at this equation, force and time are inversely proportional. So when we talked about inverse proportionality, we said it meant that if one goes up, the other goes down. Okay, so what that means is if you're applying a large force, so force is going up, the time is going to go the opposite direction, down. So think of that truck running into that wall. Large force, so force is high, time low, opposite directions. Okay, but now think of applying the brakes to the truck. That's a low force, so force is going down. Since it's inversely proportional with time, that means time is going to go the opposite direction, up. So if the force is low, down, the time is going to be longer, higher, going up. Therefore, increasing the time can actually decrease the force felt. So this is a concept that has been applied to many safety measures. So let's look at some real-world applications using this inverse proportionality. So we just said if you can increase your contact time, make the time go up, you can decrease the force. And this has been very helpful in the real world. So this is the reason that we have padded dashboards, for instance, in cars. Because by applying that padding, what you're doing is when someone gets in an accident and they hit their head on the dashboard, it's increasing the contact time of their head on that dashboard because their head has to go through all those layers of padding before it hits the harder surface. So their contact time with the dashboard goes up, and this means that the force they feel now is going to go down, opposite direction. It's going to lessen their injuries. It's the same reason why in gymnastics and wrestling you have padded floors. Because when that gymnast, that wrestler, even in boxing matches, right? When they hit that padding, their contact time is increased because they have to go through all those layers of padding before they hit the hard floor. So since the contact time went up, the force felt goes down, less injuries, right? Same in boxing, they wear padded gloves because that's going to increase the contact time, lessen the force, lessen the injuries.